Okie dokie. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to School for Course in Miracles. I guess this is the first regular Saturday class in a while after the completion of the immersion program last Saturday, which is wonderful. And as always, thanks to Tim and Lynn for this wonderful venue. This ability gives us this ability to get together and share what's been helpful in the course on almost daily basis. So pretty close to daily, huh? So for a lot of years. So thank you, and thank you. And thanks, of course, to the course for being the inspiration and all those involved in it, which is all of us. So thank you all. I thought might be fun today is to I was thinking sort of post Easter, as you could kind of give you a little history of my thought process for picking a topic was like, okay, we've got a taste of resurrection. And so how do we maintain it? Well, I think we maintain it by finding what's helpful and so what I jotted down here, all I've got in my browser tabs is some of the words that I was looking through was the first one was help. You know, what's helpful in maintaining our peace and the forgiveness process, of course, right? And then so there's 368 instances of the word help, 2 of rescue in the course, 104 of guide, 47 of guidance. Some of the words aren't all grouped together like that. 31 of aid, 3 of assist, 38 of support, 166 of serve, 21 of service, 40 of comfort, and 230 of strength. I'm thinking, well, that's our real identity is all those ideas of, if you will, positive attributes. But the course really focuses on the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, right? So what's the opposite of help? Well, the things that don't help. Well, what doesn't help? The hindrance. So I thought, well, let's do the little hindrance. I haven't done that in a while, right? So that's how I arrived at the primary topic for today. So now you know where my mind jumped around to get to the topic. But before we do that, what I'd like to do is actually, because I was reading the first introduction in chapter 22, which is only 4 paragraphs, and I'd like to start with that. And in fact, I'd like to start with the first sentence in chapter 22 and make that a meditation. So I'm just going to read it. If you want to turn to chapter 22, which I should have done beforehand, but I didn't. Let's see. I'm pretty close here. On page starts
467.
467. A voice from the clouds has spoken. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, on 467, I'm just going to read the first sentence, and then we can read the rest of it after we use this first sentence as a meditation. So just sit back, close your eyes, and take pity on yourself, so long enslaved. So we'll just relax for a few moments and figure out how to, with Holy Spirit's help, uh, go easy on ourselves. You know, cut ourselves some slack here. So we'll just have a few moments of cutting ourselves some slack. Okay, is everyone feeling the slack? All loose, loosey goosey, and relaxed. Okay. Well, if not, we'll deepen that as we go along. Okay, so I'm just going to go across the screen and ask people to read paragraphs. And if you don't want to read, of course, you can always pass. So Susie, you're at the top of my screen in upper left. Would you like to read the first paragraph in chapter 22?
I would be glad to.
Thanks.
It's the introduction?
Yes, Salvation and the Holy Relationship Introduction.
Here we go. Take pity on yourself so long enslaved. Rejoice, whom God hath joined have come together, and need no longer look on sin apart. No two can look on sin together, for they could never see it in the same place and same time. Sin is a strictly individual perception, seen in the other, yet believed by each to be within himself. And each one seems to make a different error, and one the other cannot understand. Brother, it is the same, made by the same, and forgiven for its maker in the same way. The holiness of your relationship forgives you and your brother, undoing the effects of what you both believed and saw. And with their going is the need for sin gone with them.
Mhm. Any thoughts on that paragraph?
I'm sure I have them, but they're very deep.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Yeah, the first sentence grabbed me, and that was what I was searching for when I was thinking about, you know, the hindrance really is the ego's pity, which is basically always serves to reinforce the problem. But the Holy Spirit's pity isn't really a great word, but because it's got so many, you know, uh, negative reinforcement connotations. But I think in the context in which it's used here, it's basically saying, cut yourself some slack. You've been so hard on yourself. You know, it, take go from the heart of the Christ mind to your heart, and make that connection that sees that the the self condemnation is needless, the suffering is needless, and we've made, I keep coming back to that wonderful phrase, Son of God, you have not sinned, but you've been much mistaken, and mistakes are correctable. The truth hasn't been damaged. And then the section we'll read in a few minutes will emphasize that really nicely. Not one note in heaven's song was missed. Yeah. And then, you know, no two can look on sin together, for they could never see it in the same place and time. That one, I was reading that earlier this morning, and I was thinking, well, that's kind of like the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. I don't know, it's kind of a physics nerdy thing, but which I'll quickly go past. But I mean, the idea of, in order to make up this world, in order to believe in the illusion of space and time, we have to sacrifice certainty, or seem to sacrifice it. And it says, for they could never see it in the same place and time. Well, Heisenberg's uncertainty principle says that you can't determine the position of a particle and its velocity. You can get one, but you can't get the other. So it's like it's it's a squirrely thing because it's made up. So anything that we basically take perfect oneness and try to collapse it down and shrink it down to a form, we're basically saying, I'd rather have the content of duality and specialness and splitness, if you will, in order to have a separate individuality. But that's like the ultimate sacrifice, but it's not a real sacrifice. I don't know if that doesn't make any sense to you. Just use your mental neuralizer and just say that, okay, whatever, or set it aside for some other day. Christina, you had your hand up. There you go.
Yeah, I totally get that.
Okay.
Now, it really it's a nice segue into what I was going to share, which is about part of this. I just met a gal friend for breakfast, and so we were talking about different stories that we've heard along the way of the enslavement of the human race. Just being kind of thinking about those and talking. So it's kind of funny that that's the first sentence that's being presented today to me. But this totally goes into what you were saying, is that we want to keep this whole story going because of, we think we see differences and we're experiencing something the same. And we're having these discussions with our persons here, and we're trying to say the same thing, trying to explain where we're coming from. And how many times have you all have repeated to somebody and saying to them, you just don't understand. You just don't understand where I'm coming from. That's what's presented here, like trying to make our point different and really upholding that story about it. But I like how it just collapses it in sentence 5 and says, okay, and each one seems to make a different error. That's right, they got their own story about what's going on here. And one the other cannot understand. When it says brother, it is the same. Underneath all of that, it's the same story. It's just presented in a way for us, because we're familiar with that, some way to get our attention. And even the fact that we're talking about it to one another means, that we have some awareness of what's going on here. It's not just, slow, I was thinking of, just going along, not having any awareness whatsoever. And then I like how the nice little wrap. The holiness of your relationship forgives you and your brother, undoing the effects that you both believed you saw, and with their going is the need for sin gone with them. Then I go back to where Helen and Bill were working on this and taking this down together, and it's being addressed to them. And that actually helps me just heal that with whomever I'm speaking with and had difference with, trying to say, my way is the right way. Don't you see? Can't you see? Please understand.
Yes.
Whatever. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Yeah, and
Glad I rushed home. I'm really glad I rushed home to join the meeting.
oh, good. Well, I'm glad you did too. Yeah, and that little tunnel vision that we have that says, I've got this figured out, we're obviously, we get this microscopic view of things and we think we understand. And the first and most notable problem with that is even those closest around us will seem to have divergent perspectives on things. And yet, if we truly compare notes about the content, not the form, but the content always resolves to some form of the separation happened. And we should all feel horribly guilty if we listen to ego's propaganda, right? Yeah. And the Holy Spirit's correction content in all of our minds is nothing happened. Out of my courtroom, please. You got better things to do with your mind. Thanks. Tom.
Well, good morning, everybody. And thank you, Christina. And I hope I layer into what you're saying, because what you said there was very helpful. But the thought that came to mind to me on this phrase where the effects, once they're gone, the need for sin is gone. So the sin is something we make up. Well, maybe it reminded me of a time, and I think this has happened twice with my wife. My wife and I have a great relationship. We love to laugh together, and we very rarely have strife. But we've had a couple of moments of strife, and that have been very interesting, and we talk about it and laugh about it still, because we have gone through a time or two where we had a day or two of conflict, and after hours of conflict and silent treatment and all that, whatever things go uncomfortably in that time, we come to a place where we begin to think, one of us pauses and says, what is it you're upset about? And I'll say, well, I'm upset because you said this. She said, I'm not even talking about that. I thought we were fighting about something else, And so you end up caught up in the effects of something. And as soon as you realize that the effects are the thing that are, once you undo the effects, as it says here, suddenly whatever it was that we were conflicted about, we don't even remember now what it was. It's like it's just gone. And I remembered that form visual of what happens with my wife and me, and sort of understood this and that sort of a way. The holiness of your relationship forgives you and your brother, undoing the effects of what you both believed and saw. Puts us right back into oneness. So thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, and as we undo the fraudulent cause, the fraudulent imaginary effect goes with it, right? It's a two domino solution. Thanks. Tom, while you're up, would you like to, oh, go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, it seemed like the second sentence and the third sentence were almost contradictory. He says, since we're already joined, we need no longer look on sin apart. And then he says, no two can look on sin together. Well, you just said we can look on it together. We don't have to look on it apart. I don't, and so that kind of threw me at first. And then I thought, well, he's kind of talking at different levels. And I guess the big thing that hit me is, without my brother and without including him in the looking, I'm going to think it's a sin. In other words, my brother is totally important in this process of, for me, seemingly as an individual decision maker, to realize it's a sin. I have to include my brother in the looking process. Like, it has to be, it's the holy relationship that helps me see that no two can look on sin together, meaning I realize it's not a sin when I look on it with my brother, for they could never see it in the same place and time, meaning I don't know what that means, actually. but I get the gist that the way out of this mess is I have to be willing to look on whatever it was. Like Tom was saying, you begin to realize that what you were upset about had nothing to do with what the other person seemingly was upset about.
Right.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, and I was thinking that the clue in that third sentence is no two can look on sin together, because if we're looking from different vantage points, we're going to see divergent images. We're going to see differences, but one mind, meaning that two, not really two, but really one mind that seems to be reflected in two people looking with Holy Spirit at something, will be able to look at the specifics and see that the content's the same, even if the form is different. That's kind of how I resolve. Maybe that's what we're all trying to resolve here. Yeah, thanks. Maya.
Yeah, from what you just said, Bruce, and what Tim said, asking the question about what seemed to be contradictions about Jesus talking about sin together, sin apart. So just from what you just said, Bruce, no two, referring to the ego, it seems like that's part of the ego's ploy, that the ego loves that no two can look on sin together, because it reinforces the separation. Okay. So that was my point relevant to you. And then with what Tim said, I'm wondering if when we see contradictions, sometimes only a sentence apart in the course, whether it's a deliberate effort on Jesus's part to get us to really, really think about this. Instead, I think it's anyway, it can be used as a purposeful thing to help us look at more deeply at the message.
Yeah, oh, I completely agree. And the juxtaposition between the completely insane ideas of the ego with the completely sane ideas of the Holy Spirit, and putting them, juxtapose them, just like in Ken's chart, it's like that place in the mind that sees both of them clearly. When if I'm looking from the ego, I don't even see the Holy Spirit's perspective. But if I can see kind of, from above the battleground, look at the two thought systems and see that the Holy Spirit really can look at the ego and see that its dualistic, warlike perspective is clearly insane. Then the choice is clear to choose against the insanity and for the sanity, right?
Yeah, and again, that's a third way. That's a third way that Jesus is bringing us to looking at the ego, and then turning to Holy Spirit. He's demonstrating that like you said, with the juxtaposition.
Yeah.
And so that's also teaching us our method, what we're going to do. He's easing us into that.
Yes. Slowly but surely, but inexorably, right? Yeah, thanks. Christina, would you like to read the second paragraph?
Need for sin, only the lonely and alone, who see their brothers different from themselves. It is this difference, seen but not real, that makes the need for sin, but not real, but seen, seem justified. I'm going to read that one again. It is this difference, seen but not real, that makes the need for sin, not real, but seen, seem justified. Okay. And all this would be real if sin were so, for an unholy relationship is based on differences, where each one thinks the other has what he has not. They come together, each to complete himself and rob the other. That's my better half, right? All the cards. They stay until they think there is nothing left to steal, then move on. Talking about my former husband. Sorry.
It's what we project onto everyone basically, so don't feel alone or bad, right? I mean,
Yeah, or
every
my roommate. Yeah,
to every ego, every other is an adversary, and the scum of the earth, right?
so true. Well, he didn't have what I want either, right? So there.
Mhm.
Oh, that's how I feel better, right? Incriminate the other. They come together, each to complete himself and rob the other. They stay until they think there is nothing left to steal and then move on. And so they wander through the world of strangers, unlike themselves, living with their bodies, perhaps under a common roof that shelters neither, in the same room and yet a world apart. I'm sure each of you have your own story, such as I know people who do that, and then when you first start out as, people too, and even siblings and our whole families and people that are working. And there are just numerous examples of this that we can draw upon to help us see this very clearly, just what we're doing here. Instead of coming together, we're using all of these to keep us apart, and cherishing this unholy relationship. I don't know, the insanity of it all.
Yeah, and I think the course is really good about pointing out the insanity of the belief in separation in all the forms it takes. The other day, one example is, I suppose, a few decades ago, it was people, in my mind, on a level of form only. It would be an example of sitting on a subway or a light rail, and everyone's got a book or a newspaper they're hiding behind. Now it's phones and tablets, right? But that's just on the level of form. On the level of the mind, we're all joined. We're all either in any given moment, either aligned with Holy Spirit's thought system or the ego. But we don't usually, make that distinction. We usually think in terms of, oh, well, they're consuming this media or that media, that kind of thing. And yet there's only two media from the course's perspective. There's the Holy Spirit's channel and the ego channel. The other day, my wife and four other friends went up to a local campground area up in the mountains a little bit, and beautiful wooded area, and found a couple picnic tables, and we brought some picnic lunches. And a part of the time we were conversing, another part of the time we were just kind of, either looking at our phones in the woods, which to me is very ironic. But we also kind of, every few moments, blue jays would dive down and look for the scraps of the leftovers from our lunch and things like that. But we had a really wonderful conversation. But it was just interesting to just kind of notice how much it was tempting to try to associate with the conversation or lack thereof with the connection or not. Well, it's like, well, minds are always joined. It doesn't matter if we're moving our mouths or not. Anyway, but it's really what thought system am I joining with, right? Anyway, Tim.
Yeah, I was thinking about the Roy Orbison song, Only the Lonely.
Yeah.
He was really good at whining about
Oh yeah. Oh,
oh,
yeah.
I just need a pretty woman. I need a woman, period. But it'd be nice if she was pretty. I mean, he was always whining about something.
Right.
Only the lonely can understand how terrible I'm feeling. And he was probably one of the greatest tenor voices of all time. And he was
sure.
so good at holding those notes forever.
Yeah.
Only the lonely, and it would just extend over vast amounts of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, the pain. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Well, speaking of whining, I've recently been appreciating Bede's contributions, because sometimes he'll read something in the course that's obviously an ego statement in a kind of false whiny voice, and to me it's just hilarious, because it's like, if I can remember to do that every time I hear myself going into ego mode, just, oh, you're so upset about this and that and the other. And I could, I could laugh about it, it's like, anyway, so yeah.
We should all have recordings of Bede doing that.
Yeah, really. But I think and I think Jesus does that throughout the course. He just says, you really want to, be that little whiny thing, that's always upset about everything. Well, yeah, I guess there's a part of us that still does, but we're getting over it. It's easing up slowly but surely. All right. Well, let's see.
This is me raising my hand.
Okay, Chris, perfect.
Yeah, I think you even had a bit of an Australian accent there when you did it like that. But I find when I do that, it just seems like that's the only thing, and only the lonely, or I'm so depressed, and you get hooked on that thought, and it just blows up. It extends. It covers everything. And of course, the music industry. I mean, definitely play on that. All the love
absolutely.
songs and
Absolutely, yeah.
and as a country music person from Nashville, oh my gosh, but when you kind of step away from it for a minute, because some songs are so wonderful to listen to, and they have a good message. They're not just hooking your that feeling you have inside, which it's easy to give into. But I lost my thought there. But yeah, it's like you do have to rise above the battlefield. The battlefield of the sad somebody done me wrong song, but also that has the music to it that can be a hook also so easily, that and then you can laugh at it, or you take it to just a group that talking about the lyrics of a song, and it's like, this is hilarious. This guy can't live without her, or without something else. He's gonna die. Anyway, it's an easy trap, but it's so good to know how to get out of that.
Yeah.
Stop listening to country music.
Well, that maybe
or a lot of music, actually,
maybe a level
probably.
confusion thing, but yeah, there's certainly there's no shortage of twangy ideas in a lot of music genres. Yeah.
Let me just finish real quick my
sure,
last
sure.
story, because when I did live in Nashville, I'm not really from Nashville, but I lived there for 25
okay.
years, and I actually worked in a car museum that had the high point was they had the car that Hank Williams died in. And that was a big deal. But across the street on the main drag in Nashville was his song, Your Cheating Heart. But they would only play the beginning of it over and over and over again all frickin' day. And, get that out of your head after listening to it for 8 hours. It was maybe it was a little easier, because it's like, oh, give me a break. And you got anything else in the jukebox there?
That's funny. As you're saying that, I was thinking, well, that is the distillation of every ego propaganda message is your heart is cheating, and so therefore it's a sin, and you need to punish yourself, right? Maybe not consciously, but that's the message. So, and that genre is very popular, not just country music, but which, and I'm not dissing country music because there's some lovely stuff there, but it's the Ego's genre is all about, it's the the whine central of the mind, right? Yeah. Let's see. Was it Maya you had your hand up again? Yep. Thanks.
Yeah, I wanted to say that of course, there's a stereotype that the country and Western songs are all about everything we lose and everything, we don't have and grievances. But don't forget this one. How can I miss you if you won't go away?
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah. And then there's the country music song that when you play it backwards, the guy gets his dog and his gun rack and his wife and his truck and all these things, come back into his life, Yeah. Um, let's move on to Christina.
So I
First.
wanted to take us away from music,
Okay.
and just this morning I was making myself feel bad because I was uh living in the area where I am and taking up the space away from the critters, and how I made myself feel bad because there were some critters on the road that were dead. And then, we can do this with capitalism too. That's what I was thinking, us, where we move in, we try to use up the resources, whatever. And a lot of the space shows are about that. They're going to go to a planet because they can mine certain something. So there's all these sneaky little things
Mhm.
and I was just doing that this morning. I was making myself feel bad because I was living in the space and we've moved in and taken it over. How, slithery that snake came in there to make me feel bad about that. And it took me a little bit to catch myself, and I was like, oh, okay, that's what's going on here. This ego is making me feel bad for living.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean you have to welcome all the snakes in the neighborhood into your house because you're taking up their space, right? I think that could be a level confusion thing. Yeah. Yeah. But the idea of noticing the need machine and the absurdity of the ego's thought system of wanting to make guilt real at all costs, and it'll find any little foothold will be adequate for the ego to keep that turf, you know. Yeah.
Okay, I'll
Stronghold.
take my last minute of time right now. One of the things I did the last time this is a funny story, Tim, went to Nashville. There's a country music singer named Chris Jansen, and he spells it just like I do. And he was at the Ryman Auditorium, which is where the Grand Ole Opry was in the old days. And it's been renovated, has perfect sound. So my girlfriend and I were going to go. I dragged her in. I got to hear this guy. I really hadn't. I had a CD, but hadn't listened to it much. And now they've got it so it's got perfect sound and everything. They made the auditorium just perfectly, and we're sitting there in the upper higher row. And there was a couple people on before him, and the music was perfect and lovely, and it was this one person singing, and the sound was great. And then Chris Jansen came on, and he had his band with him, and it was so loud. She can't stand that, and I couldn't stand that either. We both left because I mean, like here, it's me listening to myself, my ego screaming and hollering, and we left. It was like, this is horrible. Now the place is filled, and people love this guy, and maybe I would too if it wasn't so heavy metal, where you can't even, for me, I can't really listen to that because it's just, I don't hear anything except noise. But I thought, how ironic, I'm going to hear myself sing in Ryman Auditorium, which is in Nashville, used to be the place to go. Now they've built a bigger one and all that. But anyway, if you ever see yourself and it's not a good scene, you're probably learning something.
Probably. Oh. Thanks, Chris. Yeah. It could be a level of confusion thinking that anyone that has your same name is identical, but then in truth we're all identical. So it wasn't just that one country singer. There was 8.2 billion humans and countless other critters and whatnot, right? So,
Okay, I lied. One more thing, because the guy that sang before, and this was they were raising money for a drug and alcohol center. And the last song that this one person sang was something about "You'll never keep me away from drugs and alcohol." I mean, like it was the thing to do. I forget the song, but it was like, yeah, I'm going there. No matter what you say, I'm going to get my drugs and alcohol. And mind you, we're raising money for a treatment center, and he's singing this song glorifying drugs and alcohol. I really am done now.
Well, that's it. That's an interesting footnote, because that's, a typical contradictory message that every ego has is, I want peace, but I'm going to fight for it. I'm going to go to war for peace, right? Yeah. One way or another. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Julie, would you like to read the next paragraph?
I am all ready for that.
Thank you.
You guys are so fun today. A holy relationship starts from a different premise. Each one has looked within and seen no lack. Accepting his completion, he would extend it by joining with another, whole as himself. He sees no difference between these selves, for differences are only of the body. Therefore, he looks on nothing he would take. He denies not his own reality because it is the truth. Just under heaven does he stand, but close enough not to return to earth. For this relationship has heaven's holiness. How far from home can a relationship so like to heaven be? Oh, that makes my heart ache. Yeah, I'm nowhere near there, but it sounds so good.
Thanks. Yeah, the line four there, he sees no difference between these selves, for differences are only of the body. And I think just noticing how much of a big deal we all want to make on differences that are superficial, that have to do with bodies and cultural backgrounds and personas and so many different they fragmenting things. That if we can just notice the ego's tendency to want to emphasize that and use it to deny the sameness, and the sameness is really that gateway that restores our reality and says that space and time cannot keep us apart. Only in a dream can that seem to happen. Maya.
Yes. For about a year and a half, I was a student being mentored by Nook Sanchez, Course in Miracles teacher.
Yeah.
And I just loved her, and I was on her board and all this stuff. But anyway, she, in her first book, even though we all know that the only holy relationship is with the Holy Spirit, right? We all know that. But that said, she made a wonderful advocacy for what I would call an echo of transforming a special relationship into a holy relationship as a practice, as a spiritual practice. And in her book, her first book, Take Me to the Truth, she very, very painstakingly detailed her relationship with Tomas Vieira, her partner. And when things fell apart for them after years of struggles, of special relationship struggle, and they were at their wits' end because they really cared about each other, but he was seeing other women, all some like non-negotiable deal breaker kind of things, and it just seemed intolerable. But they actually worked at it and completely transformed their relationship. And very much like in the development of trust, where we have that time when we feel like we're losing everything, and then nothing works anymore, things are falling away. I'm not sure what phase that is, but those of you who have read in the manual about the development of trust, they just completely reconstructed their relationship to be an echo, what I would call an echo. They didn't call it that. They called it a holy relationship. And that's her whole focus in her work in the course now, is setting up workshops for people to make a holy relationship with another person, you know, with another body, which, you know, I didn't want to go that route. It doesn't make sense to me, but I could see what she was doing. And it's certainly a decent practice to begin to see our brother as the same as us, and to let go of all the neediness. And I think they really did it. They really, really did it. You know, it was impressive. So just wanted to share that.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I helped organize a workshop they did in Ashland, Oregon over a decade ago, and they yeah, sure, we gave a wonderful presentation. And one of the things that I remember Tomas sharing that really stuck with me is the GPS metaphor, and how, you know, the Holy Spirit is kind of like our inner GPS, and it doesn't say, "Oh, you jerk, you know, you missed the turn." It just says, you know, recalibrating, you know, we'll just go to the next place. But yeah, you could tell that there was a genuine friendship, and they transcended a lot of the specialness and the way they related to each other. At least what I was able to tell. And like you say, it's at best it's a reflection, but it can be a nice reflection. But the point, of course, is really, as you pointed out, that the real relationship is that we take our decision-making mind and switch it to the Holy Spirit instead of the ego. And that's the holy relationship the Course is aiming toward. Anything else that happens or doesn't happen on the level of form is just, you know, cake frosting, whatever.
And that's really helpful to realize,
Yeah.
because otherwise you can make yourself crazy, like trying to climb to the top of the ladder. It's the same kind of thing, you know,
Right.
saying, I will do this. I am determined to see my brother as myself. And people go through all kinds of phony baloney, you know, I think egoic uh, uh, gyrations, trying to prove that they have a holy relationship with another body.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a hazard or a trap that one can fall into.
Yeah, exactly. I, sandcastle, have a great holy relationship with this other sandcastle on the beach. Well, what is that thing? Oh, that's called tide. Oops. Uh-oh. Tim?
In today's lesson, when my ego read, it's talking about we invest in the Holy Spirit and we get back 1,000 and 100,000 more than what we gave. And I'm like, well, I'm not feeling that investment. I don't feel this 100,000 coming back. Occasionally, maybe 10 times as much, but not 100,000. And then I'm like, no, it's already there. You know, it's not something that's going to happen. It's already there, and I'm the one that's pretending it's not there. So, I mean, we all get caught up in, you know, understandably, as egos. We got to build a holy relationship. No, it's already there. It's already there. We just need to. And the only thing keeping me from being aware of the 100,000 or being aware that the holy relationship is already there is any little judgment I'm holding against my brother, whoever that brother might be. And it's not like I had, once again, it's not like I got to build a holy relationship. It's just I have to lay down my judgments that are keeping me from seeing it's already there.
Exactly.
That's too easy.
You might even call it a little hindrance that is standing in the way. Yeah.
Itty bitty.
Which I thought we'd be talking about, but we're having such a good discussion. It's good. So let's go ahead and read the last paragraph. Myra, would you like to read that last paragraph? And then we'll jump over to the little hindrance. Yeah.
Okay.
Since Tim set us up perfectly for that now.
Think what a holy relationship can teach. Here is belief in differences undone. Here is the faith in differences shifted to sameness. And here is sight of differences transformed to vision. Reason now can lead you and your brother to the logical conclusion of your union. It must extend as you extended when you and he joined. It must reach out beyond itself as you reached out beyond the body to let you and your brother be joined. And now the sameness that you saw extends and finally removes all sense of differences, so that the sameness that lies beneath them all becomes apparent. Here is the golden circle where you recognize the Son of God. For what is born into a holy relationship can never end. Oh, what a lovely description. I like the way he mentions all aspects of the holy relationship. Let's see, what does he say? Differences are undone. We shift into the sameness. Sight is transformed into vision. Reason, which is the right mind, is leading me and my brother together into union. And this is, of course, love, and has to be extended. And it has to extend because we're joined. And it must reach out beyond itself. And then, like Maya was just saying, it's not between people. This is definitely this last piece here. It's all in the mind, beyond the body, so that you and your brother be joined. And the sameness that you saw extends and finally removes all sense of differences. Bodies can't do that. Absolutely not. This is all in the mind, and so that the sameness that lies beneath them all becomes apparent. Our truth is at the level of the mind. Our truth is not here on our peanut butter level here. Well, here is the golden circle where you recognize your truth. You recognize the Son of God. And what is there born, well, that's forever. That can never end. A lovely description of the holy relationship. Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you hit all those highlights beautifully. Yeah. Thank you, Myra.
While I was reading, I said, "Oh, that's one. That's one." So
yeah. All these wonderful attributes of what we really are eternally, but we've covered over. Huh? Yeah. I was just going to add on the golden circle, I guess, since I have sort of a geometric orientation sometimes. This finite circle is always got an inside and an outside. It's got a we and a they. Or as I like to say, it's got a lambscape in the middle and a goatscape on the outside. And that's because the ego always wants to polarize. But in the Forgotten Song, it talks about an infinite circle that goes with really no borders extending to infinity. I'm paraphrasing, but the idea being that it's all inclusive, and so that the pure non-duality of our real identity has all these attributes that paragraph points out, and you elaborated on so nicely. But it's that luminous golden awareness of a heart that's been reconciled beyond the dualistic dream. And that's why we know that that's where we're headed. And that's why we're drawn to the Course. Yeah. Thanks. Maya and then Christina.
Yeah. What Myra just read about how this process of developing, seeing your brother as the sameness with your brother, seeing your joinedness, that is happens only in the mind. That is so essential. And it takes the burden off of, let's say, if I'm really trying to see my brother as myself, but I'm struggling because I'm triggered in 12 ways from Tuesday. And you guys can imagine that I might be right now. The beauty is that the work needs to happen in my mind, does not have to happen with the other person. In fact, it's probably better if it doesn't happen with the other person. And then there isn't that level confusion that we think it has to happen between bodies too. We think we're working it in our mind, but then we're working it with a body who's going, what's going on here? And so that's such a relief. It removes the burden of body to body seeing sameness. You do the work yourself. You do that in your mind, and that's it. Regardless of what the other person is doing, the other body is doing.
Thank you. Yes, and that's the undoes the seek but do not find propaganda of the Course of the ego. That the Course's correction, being the Holy Spirit, says, yeah, if you solve it on the level of cause, which is in the mind, you don't have to deal with the effect directly. Just go straight to the source, which will take care of the cause. That cause will take care of the effect. Yeah, Christina, and then Tom.
Yeah, thank you. This is such a helpful discussion again, as we, try to do this holy relationship and understand that that's what I try to do. And you all know how the result was, right? It's no more because you don't know what the other person is really what they're doing. No, I prefer to like take from this again the new understanding of brother that I have that's been very helpful for me is that it is all those barriers to love. It's all the idols. So it's not just people, it's things and situations. And so brother is all encompassing in those. And that really helps me then remove away from me trying to resolve it with the bodies, with the people, because that's where I was at. Like I said, we know the outcome of that.
Yeah, thanks. All righty. Anything else on this section? Oh, go ahead, Tom.
May I say something on this?
Sure.
Just something that really lands on me in this last in this section 4 here, paragraph 4, is this idea that my faith, the personal Tom has a faith in differences. We fight for what we believe. We fight for what the thing we trust in. And here it says, Jesus says, here is the faith in differences shifted to sameness. And the faith when through forgiveness, when I can have realized that my faith is actually what I really believe in is sameness, not difference. How radically it changes the peace with which I see everything. I just love that line. I wanted to highlight that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it really is a radical shift when we notice how much we're determined to see differences when we're identified with ego, and just see the sheer insanity of that. And even if we just loosen our little white knuckled grip a little bit more each day, that's a good thing. By seeing how absurd it is to want to be miserable. Yeah. Thanks. Well, I thought we'd spend the first 10 minutes on this, but since we spent almost the first hour, that's all right. But I did want to read, and I'm just going to read the 2 paragraphs before the section I'd intended to read and spend most of the time on today, which is the Little Hindrance, because I think it kind of leads up to it really nicely. And this is I'll just read the last 2 paragraphs of where sin is left, and then we'll go to the next section.
And where
So
are you?
this is in chapter 26, section 4, paragraphs 5 and 6. Let's see if I can find where that is real quick, in case somebody's beat me to it. 26.
549. 549.
Yeah. Thank you. 549. Thank you. That's it. So yes. So I'll read paragraphs 5 and 6. Where sin was once perceived will rise a world that will become an altar to the truth, and you will join the lights of heaven there and sing their song of gratitude and praise. And as they come to you to be complete, so will you go with them. For no one hears the song of heaven and remains without a voice that adds its power to the song and makes it sweeter still. And each one joins the singing at the altar that was raised within the tiny spot that sin proclaimed to be its own. And what was tiny then has soared into a magnitude of song in which the universe has joined with but a single voice. This tiny spot of sin that stands between you and your brother still is holding back the happy opening of heaven's gate. How little is the hindrance that withholds the wealth of heaven from you, and how great will be the joy in heaven when you join the mighty chorus to the love of God. I think these 2 paragraphs really serve beautifully as the preface to the next section. So that's why I wanted to kind of back up a little and read those first. Because it really is saying, we can't be apart from the totality, nor can anyone that we've ever met or thought about or known in any way. No one's left out. And I was kind of flashing on that line in the text paragraph where it says, one of the craziest ideas of all is that we could lose someone that we love. We could lose anything of beauty. And on page 83 in the text, I've got it heavily bookmarked here. How can you who are so holy suffer? All your past except its beauty is gone, and nothing is left but a blessing. I've saved all your kindnesses and every loving thought you ever had. I have purified them of the errors that hid their light and kept them for you in their own perfect radiance. They are beyond destruction and beyond guilt. They came from the Holy Spirit within you, and we know what God creates as eternal. So, I mean, to me, that's the quality of the recognition that, we can't lose. We can't lose anything true or real. And the only thing that's going to fall away, or if you will, be sacrificed or let go of, is the idea of sacrifice. We'll all voluntarily want to give up the idea that we could be incomplete. So we're not really giving it. We're as Ken Wapnick says, there's the everything, something, and nothing. The ego is nothing that tries to make something out of nothing, but the Holy Spirit basically is the everything that reminds us that the ego is nothing, and we're losing nothing to gain everything. So that's a pretty good deal, Stephen. And I was going to have you read next. Perfect.
Oh, great. I heard a few years ago, and I really trusted the authority. I can't remember what the authority was, but the authority said that this section where sin has left and the forgiven world were Wapnick's two favorite sections. And one of the many things they have in common is there's profound, even phenomenal hope in these two lessons. So really wonderful choice. I'm glad you just read that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Stephen. Yeah, and that's the hope that we really all have, that was drawn us to the course and keeps us, back at the course and persisting with it. And we're as Ken points out, is we're going to falter with the course. That's why there's 365 lessons instead of one. He knows we need a lot of reinforcement, but that's a good thing. Yeah, and it is infinitely hopeful, because it's like we've already arrived home because we never left. So, it's kind of a happy inevitability. I love that phrase. Myra, please.
Yes, just to add on also what Stephen was saying, yes, it was a very favorite piece of Ken, also because of all the musical references.
Mm-hmm.
We all know Ken makes always a whole symphony out of the whole course. And
exactly.
Just the two paragraphs that you just read now, when he talks about singing a song of gratitude and praise and all the power of the song and joining into the mighty chorus, but singing in a single voice.
Yes.
I love those references.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just wanted to mention that. Yeah.
Thank you, Myra. Yeah, it's that single voice that we all share. And it seems like, and if you've listened to, incredibly beautiful music, the notes all blend together, and Ken points that out frequently in his work, doesn't he? It's like that, and that's the mark of a truly inspired performance, is when all the musicians work together in concert, pun intended, to to produce something that's greater than the sum of its parts, and that absolutely is our real identity, is more than the sum of the parts, because ultimately there are no parts, and it's only our dogged determination to be part instead of the whole that keeps us, seemingly separate, right? Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and it is a beautiful symphony that we're returning to, isn't it? Yeah. So, Stephen, would you like to read the first paragraph of the Little Hindrance? Next page.
Of course.
Thank you. Thank you.
A little hindrance can seem large indeed to those who do not understand that miracles are all the same. Yet teaching that is what this course is for. This is its only purpose, for only that is all there is to learn. And you can learn it in many different ways. All learning is a help or hindrance to the gate of heaven. Nothing in between is possible. There are two teachers only who point in different ways, and you will go along the way your chosen teacher leads. There are but two directions you can take while time remains and choice is meaningful, for never will another road be made except the way to heaven. You but choose whether to go toward heaven or away to nowhere. There is nothing else to choose.
Mhm.
Wow, thank you.
Mhm.
I don't think anybody can follow that up, so I'm just going to listen to y'all. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Stephen. Yeah. What I get from that, among many things, is that the simplicity of, the non-dual curriculum meets us where we're at in our dream of duality and says that, there's really only one real choice, and that's to forgive. That's to just keep looking at what I've been projecting onto the world and saying, wow, what a pained, tortured mind must have made this crazy world, and how deeply I need to forgive from the depth of my heart all the things that I've put onto the world, and just say, oh, I could let this go. I could not torture myself by looking at my projections, forgiving myself and seeing that that hasn't done anything. And that's the little hindrance. And it truly is a little hindrance. It seems large because we don't understand that every illusion is the same, as the points out. But all we have to know is that there's just one choice. There seems like there's countless in on the level of illusion, on the horizontal level. There's illusion A and illusion B and illusion C ad infinitum, all the way to illusion umpteen Z, and yet they're all the same. And if I can begin to see by generalizing that every specific is the same content that's capable of being forgiven, that I believe the separation was real, then I'm inching my way back to where I never left and helping everyone do the same. Yeah. Thanks. Maya.
Yeah, here to me, Jesus is telling us how simple it can be. We've been dwelling in the world of complexity,
Yeah.
which keeps us mindless and confused.
Yep.
And he's saying, okay, guys, there's only two choices. And actually there's only one, because the one you've been living in isn't real.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but it gave me a lot of hope when I finally got it through my thick skull that it really was simple. And if I thought it was complicated, then I was just in my ego, just in the ego mind. Yeah, thanks.
As you're saying thick skull, I was thinking it's sort of like the thick veil. but it seems thick, but it's actually in a gossamer thin, right? In truth, from the Holy Spirit's perspective. Yeah. And that's a little hindrance that ego wants to make into a big hindrance. Yeah. Tom, would you like to read the next paragraph?
Forgive. I'm sorry. we're on the side. I'm reading the prior section
Okay.
here. Okay. Nothing is ever lost but time, which in the end is meaningless. For it is but a little hindrance to eternity, quite meaningless to the real teacher of the world. Yet since you do believe in it, in time, that is, why should you waste it going nowhere when it can be used to reach a goal as high as learning can achieve? Think not the way to heaven's gate is difficult at all. Nothing you undertake with certain purpose and high resolve and happy. Nothing you undertake with certain purpose and high resolve and happy confidence, holding your brother's hand and keeping step to heaven's song, is difficult to do. But it is hard indeed to wander off, alone and miserable, down a road that leads to nothing and that has no purpose. So we should probably spend time meditating on what's truly hard and what's truly not hard, what's truly easy. But we're mixed up about that.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And doesn't it seem that when we actually allow Holy Spirit's message to get through, it's like, oh, what a relief, because it takes an enormous amount of effort to fight what our real intuition, our real guidance is telling us. I was also thinking about the metaphor of the steps, and Ken often points out frequently that there's no reference to adults or even adolescents in the course, and that we're all infants or babies or toddlers. So all the steps are really baby steps. So they're not, it's not Olympic level stuff, but the Olympic level performance is achieved by a whole bunch of baby steps taken consistently over and over and over again. And just catching ourselves when we're upset and saying, oh, I need to see the way this problem is, not the way I set it up. Back to look at the setup. I just need to keep looking at my decision for the thought system of guilt, and then I will have high resolve and happy confidence, because every moment that I switch over from ego to Holy Spirit, uh, but not by trying to change behavior or form, but just by noticing what I'm doing with my mind, to that little bit of lucidity, each little lucid, clear moment where I catch what I'm doing with my mind, and without condemnation, is like, there's another baby step. and there's the peacefulness and a confidence on that route, where, like he's saying, everything else, when we wander off alone and miserable, thinking, well, I'm doing this by myself. Oh no, we have the help of all being. We have the help of the cosmos, not the physical world, but the reality of our real identity is working with us to support us and bolster those efforts. Because, and the way it's bolstered is each moment that we choose against the guilt thought system, we're a little bit more peaceful, and that's reinforcing, right? Yeah. Thanks. And then sometimes we get little kitty licks like Lisa to reinforce our decision for loving and kindness. Yeah, exactly. Maya, would you like to read the next paragraph?
I would. And are we on God gave his teacher?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right. God gave his teacher to replace the one you made. So just right there, we're talking about God gave us Holy Spirit in the right mind to replace the one that I made in the wrong mind, which was the ego.
Mm-hmm.
Not to conflict with it. We know that the ego is all about conflict. So that's, if we're in conflict, we know we're in the wrong mind, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And what he would replace has been replaced. Love it, love it. He loves to play with words. Yeah, so
It's a done deal, huh?
that's right. What Holy Spirit would replace, it's already happened. The separation didn't happen. The conflict is unreal. 1 + 1 is not 2. Or 4, what is it? 2 + 2 is 5, not 4. Okay. Time lasted but an instant in your mind, with no effect upon eternity. We can't screw it up. We are not capable of screwing up heaven, no matter how hard we try. We cannot do it. And so is all time past, and everything exactly as it was before the way to nothingness was made. Welcome to the road to nothingness. There's a side, we're at a crossroad. On the wrong-minded side, there's an arrow that says, welcome to nothingness, where conflict and confusion reigns. Or to the right, welcome to right-mindedness, where nothing else, it's where eternity lives, right? So, and here's one of my favorite alliterations. I call it a triple header. The tiny tick of time in which the first mistake was made, and all of them within that one mistake held also the correction for that one, and all of them that came within the first. So let's unpack that sentence. Let's do it again. The tiny tick of time in which the first mistake was made, in which we believe we left heaven. That's the first one. That's the first mistake. Didn't really happen, but we think it did, right? In the unconscious. All of them within that one mistake held also the correction for that one. So during that tick of time, which isn't real, God gave us echo of his love of truth, you know, through the Holy Spirit, the bridge between us and God and God. So he held the correction, the Holy Spirit, for that one, and all of them that came within the first. So everything else that would you say just everything that we in the wrong mind that we thought had happened? What would you say all of them within the first? What would that be? All of them. What's the them?
Every illusion, right?
Mistake? Every mistake?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And in that tiny instant, time was gone. For that was all it ever was.
Boink.
Just a blink in time, a wrinkle in time.
Blip.
Yeah, a blip. And in that tiny instant, time was gone. For that was all it ever was. What God gave answer to, Holy Spirit, is answered and is gone. He gave an answer to all of the seeming numerous egoic conflicts that then proceeded as to manifest on level 2 in the world.
One answer to correct all the others.
Yeah.
Or to use Tolkien's language, one ring to rule them all, on the other side of the fence. I was thinking how simple that is, you know, is that there was one correction, and it corrected everything that we thought we messed up by making up a dream of time and space. But it's so simple and so straightforward. I also was going to mention, since you mentioned alliteration with the letter T, when I was helping rebuild the FIP website, if you've gone to the Foundation for Inner Peace website, it has a little ticker tape that has today's lesson on it, right? So when I was rebuilding the introduction to that how to use the workbook, when they had the website redone, I put tap the ticker tape text to take today's tutorial. So it's still there. They haven't touched it yet. So anyway, Tim, there's another T. Tim.
Wow. That's good. That's impressive.
Oh, did you call me?
Yes, please. Your name is also a T, so you fit right in. Yeah.
So David Byrne of the Talking Heads, and this is back in the 80s. I mean, he had like at least 4 or 5 songs that were just so Course in Miracles based. It would be hard to imagine that he wasn't a Course in Miracles student. I mean, he's got this marching song where it's a marching beat, and we're all marching down the road to nowhere. I mean, it's literally, that's the refrain over and over again. We're on the road to nowhere, and we're marching along in steady unison on this road to nowhere. Then he had a song called Heaven. Heaven's a place where nothing ever happens. And they play the same old song all night long. the song of prayer, the song of forgiveness. And then he's got one called Home. Home is a place that I guess I'm already there. I mean, it's just like, really? How'd you know all that stuff? Oh, you must have picked up the course back in the mid 80s for sure. But in a sense, you know, the Holy Spirit is the road to nowhere too. There's no place to go. We're already home. I mean, he takes the same concept of the road to nowhere the ego uses to get us to believe we're actually marching somewhere, we're going somewhere. I mean, really, the Holy Spirit is the road to nowhere either. There's nowhere to go. We're already home. We're already okay. The holy relationship is already there. We don't have to make it happen. Home is a place that I guess I'm already there.
Nothing to do. I need do nothing. Yeah. Stephen.
Yeah,
Thanks, Tim.
he also says this in a song called Moon Rocks. He says, flying saucers, levitation. Yo, I can do that. Thank you.
Levity's good. Yes. That's the levitation of the mind, right? From above the battleground. Thanks. Chris, would you like to read the next paragraph?
Yes. 4, right? We're on 4.
Yes, please.
To you who still believe you live in time and know not it is gone, the Holy Spirit still guides you through the infinitely small and senseless maze you still perceive in time, though it is long since gone. You think you live in what is past. Each thing you look upon you saw but for an instant, long ago, before its unreality gave way to truth. Not one illusion still remains unanswered in your mind. So uncertainty was brought to certainty so long ago that it is hard indeed to hold it to your heart, as if it were before you still. Yeah, kind of I don't know, here and now paragraph there, it sounds like, and we're just we think we're reliving, learning from our past, living from our past. You who still believe you live in time and know not it is gone. The Holy Spirit guides you through the infinitely small and senseless maze you still perceive in time. Your life, in other words, it sounds like, though it is long since gone. I'm just struck on all this, especially when Tom was reading the second paragraph and some into the third, how much it's really helpful to read this as poetry instead of scientific treatise or something like that, because the sound of it is so beautiful, and it's just kind of painting a picture. It's artwork with words, really. So this is just beautiful. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it's the beauty in our mind that's resonating with the beauty in the mind that Helen was tapped into, which is the same mind. Yeah, and all the ugly of the duality was over long ago.
Yeah.
It never happened, but our imaginations are still hanging on to little scraps of stuff that was over long ago. I love how Ken Wapnick says, you read passages like, the world was over long ago. It's like, well, where does that put me? And that's why we need to, continue to forgive our projections into the world that make it seem like, that our identity is still solidly in a dream world. And yet there's a growing part of our awareness that knows that we're returning to the identity we never left. Where the eternal beauty, the eternal peace, the eternal joyousness, the eternal innocence, the eternal connection. We try to use dualistic terms, but it's that the sameness that leads to the oneness that we never left is what's drawing us back to where we never left in our mind, and no one's left out. Yeah.
And I had a note prior to all this, and I don't mean to bring up any one particular person, but this thought came to me after I said something, an example or something that I'm not sure it made any sense at all or was related to a course. But my experience has been, and I'll just read what I wrote here, is Bruce, and because there's two Bruces, I put Bruce Rawles makes what I say make sense from a Course of Miracles point of view. And that is very helpful when especially if I feel like I'm just babbling or something, and I couldn't make sense out of it. But this guy Bruce Rawles does. He'll make it into he'll show how it is, or maybe how it isn't related to the course or to life. But at any rate, it's helpful.
Well, thank
So
you.
if you ever see that guy, let him know I appreciate it.
He's starting to fade. So I wouldn't put too much stock in him. I think it's really this Holy Spirit dude that
Yeah.
He's channeling, and all of us here are channeling, that I think is the one we need
Yeah.
to invest in. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yep.
because that's I think where we're all at,
and of course everybody does that when they're
Yeah.
when they're speaking.
yeah.
It is spirit coming through so many people here.
Yeah, and I think that's why these get-togethers that we call classes are not only inspiring but fun, because when we read the course and share what we find helpful in it, we're undoing the hindrance. We're looking at the blocks that we made and gently laughing at the crazy thoughts that we've held that have held us back. All the grievances, and we kind of look at the little whining voice that says, "I want this grievance still." And,
Yeah, you're doing
and
deed now. Yeah.
yeah, well, yeah, and so we're all helping each other, rise above the battleground and seeing how silly it is to drag our feet from what the peace that we really want. Yeah.
I think I like that statement too. These little get-togethers instead of classes, because for me, still classes sometimes conjures up, flunking a class in school and all the embarrassment that comes with that.
Well, and all along those lines, we all have already passed with flying colors, and we've already left the courtroom with a complete guiltless verdict. So whatever metaphor you use, Jesus is telling us, Holy Spirit is telling us this, like, it's a done deal. No sweat. The courtroom was over long ago. The classroom was over long ago, but we're just reliving these ancient memories and doing it in a pace that's comfortable to us, so that we can feel the ease and use that ease as kind of like the tractor beam in our mind, that we're saying, okay, I've lowered my shields, Holy Spirit, you can tow me home.
Yeah, to me, these little get-togethers still sounds more like something happening here and now, as opposed to a class.
And yet it's part of our mind reaching from eternity into what seems to be now, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah, I like gatherings the best, but class certainly fits with the definition of that, and how soon we need to be reminding. In the first paragraph, it says, yet teaching about miracles and teaching, that is what this course is for. This is its only purpose, for only that is all there is to learn. We're all teaching all the time, and we're all learning all the time. Sometimes it's simultaneous, but the core. We're here to save time, and we're here to teach and learn. What else is there? And we're really doing nothing, of course. And we're the world was over long ago. But when you put that with tiny tick of time and everything's happening at once, good luck with that. But we can learn that even though it says something that seems impossible to learn. That's for me what's so wonderful about this course, and all the iambic pentameter and the symphonic way this course comes to us. It's really wonderful just to have found this. Thank you.
Yeah, and we're finding it together, or as Ram Dass says, we're all walking each other home, right? Yeah, exactly. Thanks. Lisa, would you like to read the next paragraph?
Paragraph 5, right?
Yes, please.
Okay. The tiny instant you would keep and make eternal passed away in heaven too soon for anything to notice it had come, but disappeared too quickly to affect the simple knowledge of the Son of God can hardly still be there for you to choose to be your teacher. Only in the past, an ancient past, too short to make a world in answer to creation, did this world appear to rise. So very long ago, for such a tiny interval of time that not one note in heaven's song was missed. Yet in each unforgiving act or thought, in every judgment, and in all belief and sin, is that one instant still called back, as if it could be made again in time. You keep an ancient memory before your eyes, and he who lives in memories alone is unaware of where he is. Yeah, so that's what we're doing. Everything we're doing here is something that happened long ago, and we're just like bringing it back. Every grievance, everything we do here is just something that was a tiny tick of time that's no longer even ever was here, but still
Wink.
not. Yeah,
Blip.
just gone. Yeah.
Gone.
I love that. Not
Yeah.
one note in Heaven's song was missed. So
Yeah. That's a line that Ken quotes very frequently in
yeah.
his talks. Yeah, and I think it's because it's a reminder. It's like we can't lose anyone or anything. In truth, we can't lose the
No,
reality. We can, yeah, the form. If the form never was and it was over long ago, then we never had it to begin with. But
that's right.
the
Yeah.
reality we've always had. We've just forgotten that we've always had it. And so our classroom, and we're all here to, as students, to unlearn the crazy thought of sin, guilt, and fear that we perpetuate each time we, think, oh, well,
Exactly.
maybe I'll nurse this grievance a little more, be a little upset with this politician or this multi-billionaire, or this family member, or this, crazy driver, this, pick any, I'm just using a handful of
Reliving what never
cliches.
was, really.
Exactly. Yeah.
Uh,
But if I can just catch myself a little quicker each time and see how silly and gently, laughably forgivable it is, then we're, back on the resurrection road. We're back off the detour, and we're following Holy Spirit's GPS and locked onto his tractor beam. How's that for a bunch of metaphors?
that's good.
Okay. Myra.
Thanks.
Oh,
Yeah,
Myra's got a diploma.
I have,
Congratulations, Senator
because
God.
I like Ken Wapnick always teaching me every day I go to school, it's the school of Jesus, and no one can fail. So we already have our diploma. Congratulations, the Son of God. You have graduated. You are at home in God. I just wanted to share that. Yeah, okay.
Woohoo! Thank you. Thank you, Myra. That's beautiful. That's wonderful. Yeah. Could you send us copies of your diploma? Because we're all graduating in the same graduating class, right? Thank you. That's wonderful. Yeah. Perfect. Christina.
Yes, too. Thank you, Myra, because I was thinking the same thing too. Although it seems so ancient, it's happening right now. We're asking that same question. We're in that blue dot right now, asking that same question. We're like stuck in a little time loop, a little bubble here that we think, of. And and we've been here what seems like a long time, but it's really just this little blip. Oh.
Just little tiny blips, huh? Thanks, Christina. Yeah. Tim, and then would you like to read the last paragraph in the section when you're done with your comment, Tim? We'll use that as a closing meditation.
You mean like paragraph 14?
14? Yeah.
Oh,
But
okay.
after you're done with whatever you were going to say. Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking up the word tiny in Big Red, and in most cases he's talking about, the tiny mad idea, tiny instant, tiny mistake, tiny itty bitty. But then he also uses tiny in a kind of positive way, in the sense of a tiny willingness, a nod to God, um, uh, a tiny moment of surprise when you let the Holy Spirit in. So tinies can be good. A tiny, a little willingness can go a long way. A tiny spark, he calls it at one point. A tiny spark can just light up the whole universe eventually. So tiny's not necessarily bad all the time.
Right, right.
The Holy Spirit can use tiny and do wonders. So yeah.
Tiny
right.
baby steps, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. All right, 14, paragraph 14. Forgive the past and let it go, for it is gone. You stand no longer on the ground that lies between the worlds. You have gone on and reached the world that lies at heaven's gate. There is no hindrance to the will of God, nor any need that you repeat again a journey that was over long ago. Look gently on your brother and behold the world in which perception of your hate has been transformed into a world of love.
Thanks. Thank you all. And now we have our tiny step marching orders to, with each step, transform each moment into a little baby step of forgiveness, right?
That was fun. Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you.
Thanks,
And
Bruce.
the
That was
paragraphs
great.
in between that we didn't get to were good too. So if you feel like reading them, they're recommended.
Thank you,
But we had a
Bruce.
great discussion, so I wasn't too concerned about getting through everything.
Thank you,
Thanks
Bruce.
a
We'll
lot.
have
Thank you
to
so
read
much.
Ken's two favorite sections now. Yeah,
Good
It's
stuff.
good.
Good
Thank
seeing
you
you,
all.
everybody.
again.
Thanks for
yeah.
everyone.
Thanks so much.
Great commentary.
Lots of hope.
Bye.